Our next inductee, George Meyer, really needs no introduction. In the press release, I captured many pages of the nomination with this paragraph. A highly respected and influential Secretary of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, George Meyer was instrumental in creating and advancing major conservation and environmental policies affecting all of the state's natural resources. During his 3-decade career with the Department of Natural Resources, Meyer worked on many of the most challenging and often the most controversial policy issues affecting Wisconsin. And our speakers will speak about that. In addition to his years in public service, George spent most of his life promoting citizen participation and the advancement of conservation organizations. Since retiring from the DNR in 2002, George has led the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, serving as its first executive secretary. With 200 affiliate organizations statewide, the Federation promotes sound resource management through its education and advocacy programs. And throughout his career, he has been respected for his integrity of leadership and unassuming personality. The nomination for George was submitted by, and I think this is most fitting, even though he's known around the state for and has thousands and thousands of conservation friends. It took young people to take the step and recognize his legacy and put it together in one of the best nominations we've ever received. So the Wisconsin Conservation Leadership Corps, made up of young people that the Federation has tried to foster and nudge towards careers in conservation, a very important role. And as a teacher in this field, I recognize that more needs to be done to move people into our most challenging but most rewarding professions. Meyer graded some of the leadership in preparing that nomination. She will be speaking by video in a few minutes. Our speakers include Ron Seaman, past Deputy Secretary of Wisconsin Natural Resources and worked with George for many years. He is also co-founder of the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin. Following him will be Jerry Knuth, current board member and past president of the Wisconsin Conservation and Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. And the last speaker, as indicated, will be Molly O'Grady, who would have received another can of sardines for being the most traveled speaker had we had it on the 14th of April. She traveled all the way from Hawaii to be here for George's induction ceremony, only to have 3 days of making snowmen. So I've met Molly only a few times. I wish she was here because she's a delightful person and deserves lots of recognition. With that, I would like to turn it over first to Ron, and then Ron to Jerry, and then Jerry to Molly. Last thing, we picked up this picture from an earlier time for George Meyer, and I think Ron would give it as a side.
I didn't sponsor that picture. No, I didn't. Well, thank you, Joe. Obviously, it's a great pleasure to be here, especially as we reflect upon the memory of the greats, and they're all greats. And George is one of the greats, no question about that. We've had people like Mickey, we have people like Zed, and Charlotte talked about Buzz, our dear friend Buzz. But the list goes on, and you can't even get to beginning to. There were so many of them, and there still are. And people in the audience are going to follow in the footsteps, and it's going to be. We're going to see their pictures up there someday. I may not, but some of you will. And so anyway, we're going to go. And George, can see George in the back. I also bring you congratulations and greetings from a variety of groups, ex-con group, for those of you who don't know what it is. It's not ex-con, but it's actually the Association of Retired Conservationists. Say hello and bring greetings, the board and the staff of Natural Resources Foundation, of which you were a member at one time and still are, and can always come back as obviously as a member. And then from your own staff, and they all send congratulations. So this is a wonderful ceremony for you, and as we're going to find out, very well deserved. I'm honored and privileged to support George's induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. This program today, as those before that we've all seen before, recognizes individuals who have given so much to protect and preserve the well-being and the beauty of Wisconsin's conservation scene. And in my opinion, and I think in many, many, many people's opinions, no one has done that better than George Meyer. I first met George in the early 1980s. I was working on a human resources project for the DNR, and George was serving as DNR's administrator for enforcement programs. As part of that project, I got to know George as a determined manager, and I was impressed with his knowledge of the department's many responsibilities and his focus on excellence. For the better part of the 80s and well into the 90s, our offices, as George's and my office, were less than 10 feet apart, and we connected in some fashion on an almost daily basis. And in that light alone, I feel that I can give more than just a glimpse of George, the consummate professional, and what he stands for. Thus, my focus this afternoon is on George's role and accomplishments with regard to the DNR. Others have and will be commenting on his other significant accomplishments. In 1993, shortly after George was appointed secretary by the DNR board, he asked me to be his deputy secretary. It occurred on a particular Saturday. George wanted me to accompany him to Milwaukee. He had to give a speech to the Milwaukee Milwaukee Safari Club, excuse me. On the way down and back, we discussed how each of us saw Wisconsin's environmental needs and the DNR's approaches to addressing those tough issues. At the end of the trip, George offered me the job, and I later realized he was observing me to see if this was a good fit. This analytic approach was one of George's strong points, in my opinion. No knee-jerk decision, just get the facts, make a decision, and that's how George operated for the rest of his career. A quick history of George's tenure with the DNR shows a meteoric rise to the top. After graduating from St. Norbert's College and receiving a law degree from the University of Wisconsin in 1972, he joined the DNR as a law intern, and in short order was hired as a staff attorney, becoming one of the state's experts on water regulatory law, probably the state expert. His many talents soon brought him to the post of administrator of the Enforcement Division, overseeing Wisconsin conservation workforce, research, and environmental impact and analysis functions of the DNR, and each of those providing a critical roadmap to understanding the tough issues facing the state's environmental programs. George, as new secretary, followed Secretary Buzz Zadney, and as we've said, a highly respected conservation manager. George well recalls Buzz's oft-heard commentary that the DNR received its notoriety because of the tough issues it had to confront. For George, that was the challenge, and he was ready for it. In his first year alone, he was out on the field on an almost daily basis, listening and responding to the needs of his conservation constituents. In that first year alone, he gave more than 240 speeches, a feat that will probably never be matched, but it gave him more exposure to the critical issues to be faced. The list of issues and accomplishments, of course, is long. To identify them all would take volumes, and we have volumes, but we don't have the time. But some of them could be viewed as challenges, and some to George were opportunities that needed managing. A few included issues that many in this audience are very well aware of, such as leading the effort to develop Wisconsin's current wetland protection regulations, providing untold benefits to ecological systems, humans, as well as fish and wildlife populations. George can, and I know that he is very proud, and we are very proud of this effort. tackling the issues involving the rebuilding of decaying urban areas, which grew into redevelopment of 24,000 acres of brownfield sites, is another one of those. I personally felt the impact of this program in my own town of Sunbury, where we were stimulated to reduce some of the 18 acres of land downtown, now a beautiful urban setting, and I happened to be on the CDA Commission, the Community Development Commission for Sunbury at that time, and can say that we were influenced by what was going on at the state level. Some of you are acquainted with the Green Deer program, which gave recognition to companies which went beyond what we'd say is just compliance. George and his staff created a pilot effort which led to the Green Deer program eventually being passed into law in my old agency, which I attended, or which I was with for a few years. Madison Gas and Electric is such a program. It is a Green Deer program, and it lasts to this day. During George's tenure, one issue kept showing up, which basically involved keeping the North, and some of you remember we put a push on that, the valuable North, and fittingly we called it the Northern Initiative, and among many things, it led to the purchase and the development of 150,000 acres of valuable wildlife, fisheries, parks, forestry land through the stewardship program, and we're all acquainted with that. Managing an agency of 3,000 employees meant keeping an eye on critical staff appointments, balancing budgets, ensuring excellence in the service centers around the state, and meeting and advancing all opportunities for women and minorities in the workforce. And on this point, if you knew the record, you would say it speaks for itself. It was an outstanding effort, probably unheralded in our career. Other issues involve mining, shoreland zoning, clean air, and of course, issues that you will remember, the legislative hot button, splitting the DNR into little fractured amounts that kept on going as an issue. And the other one was the political appointment of the DNR secretary. Those were always hot button issues. We can't forget them, but we can remember how George responded to them in a diplomatic and responsible way, providing objective data rather than just a blistering argument. He made points, George made points by his steady progress working with the individuals that needed to be worked with. We can't forget that. And of course, last but not least was the DNR's effort to comply with the court order related to Ojibwa reservation hunting, fishing, and gathering in the ceded territories. George clearly was the point person leading a team of staff in negotiating over 100 harvest agreements and keeping the effort safe and in compliance with the court initiative. George not only performed his managerial role well, but he did it with heartfelt feelings. And I remember a poster that George had on his office door. It said, Anishinaabe, the people. And to George, that meant respecting the people that you're dealing with, and I'll never forget that. And the other thing I won't forget of George, and that's George took us dancing on the reservation one time. And if you want to see a critical thing, Jim Addis will remember this, he's in the audience. We had to dance to beat of the tom-tom drums and join in. George, of course, had practiced this because he had been working with the Native Americans. But the rest of us had. It was quite a sight, Jim. So we say thank you, George, for making our future a little brighter and our place in the environment a lot safer. Thank you for continuing the fight to keep Wisconsin the conservation example of the nation. Thank you for setting the tone for environmental quality when you were in the chair as DNR Secretary, and even now as you serve the wonderful wildlife communities in Wisconsin. Cherish, congratulations to you, and congratulations from your past staff. We know that your leadership, the kind of leadership that you've given us so far will continue on ad infinitum, we believe. So thank you very much, George. Jerry, he's going to introduce already, so you can do it, Jerry.
George Meyer has had a long history with the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation dating back to the early days as a DNR division administrator and DNR secretary. Ralph Rich remembers working with George in the hunter safety program and the Ojibwe Native American off-reservation treaty rights. Bucky Killischek remembered when the state taxidermist had difficulty with licensing issues, and George, as secretary, personally took the lead in getting them resolved. Bucky also remembers that trapping received proper attention at the DNR under George's leadership. I remember his emphasis on public access for hunting, fishing, and trapping in the state, and the fact that he was the first DNR secretary. To fully recognize the importance of sporting dog training and hunting heritage in the state. George often spoke at our Federation meetings, and in the mid-1990s, he received the Federation's Conservationist of the Year award. That night, Ralph Rich and asked George what he planned to do after he retired from the DNR. Ralph asked George to keep the Federation in mind, and so a seed was planted. In 2003, soon after he retired, the Federation decided to create an executive director position to assist the running in the organization. George applied and was selected for the position. As a result, the Federation has grown in size, activity, and stature. The Federation finally had someone full-time to carry out its important conservation education and conservation policy advocacy programs. Due to George's efforts, club membership of the Federation has grown from 79 affiliate clubs to over 200 sporting clubs in the state. George has always been a strong believer in conservation and environmental education, and under his leadership, the Federation's youth education programs have grown in number and strength. Our school education trunk program was refurbished and expanded due to grants that George obtained in 2006 when the DNR proposed to close the Mackenzie Environmental Education Center and its education programs for 9,000 school children. George remembered the Federation's former history in creating the center and reached out to the Friends of Mackenzie and put together a business plan for the Federation to rescue and take over the operation in Mackenzie. The DNR agreed to the plan, and with Ruth Ann Lee, our business manager, becoming an educator for the center, Mackenzie thrived. When the Federation turned the center back over to the DNR, the number of students had grown to 15,000, and the center was in far better shape than we found it. Mackenzie continues in operation today because of it. Under George's leadership, the Federation partnered and became the fiscal agent and employer staff for the highly successful Wisconsin Green School Network field teams, which operates in a number of schools in the state, bringing strong conservation-based education into numerous schools. Another education achievement was that you will hear more about from Molly and Brady is the Wisconsin Conservation Leadership Corps Training Program, an innovative effort put together by the Federation board member Lil Pipping and George. George also worked with other organizations to create an outdoor skills day for 3,000 students in southern and central Wisconsin. When that program ended, with Jim Hume's help and leadership, the Federation transferred our financial support to create a grant program for sports organizations to have local outdoor skills days. Beyond our conservation education program, George used his educational and work background to greatly strengthen the Federation's conservation policy advocacy program, which focuses on protection of fish and wildlife, public access for outdoor recreation, protection of our public lands, conservation education programs, and the advancement of the shooting sports. The Federation has always been a supporter of strong conservation policy, but until George was hired, we did not have a full-time top-notch spokesperson to deliver our message. George brought a wealth of knowledge conservation policies and also which buttons to push in order to bring our message forward. His background brought a high degree of credibility and visibility to the position of the Federation. Legislators and the broad range of media reach out to George and the Federation weekly to find out what our position is on any particular topic or bill. Even those who disagree and express their unhappiness with our position still must respect it and take it into account. The Federation has been in the forefront of legislation affecting mining, the independent DNR secretary, groundwater quantity and quality, timber wolf delisting, chronic wasting disease, protection of our wetlands, and virtually every bill affecting fish and wildlife and their habitat, and hunting, fishing, and trapping. Due to George's background, we take positions on over 100 bills in every legislative session, far more than any other organization in the state. These are difficult times to maintain strong conservation and environmental policies in Wisconsin and in Washington, D.C. But sportsmen and women and sportsmen and women in the state have a strong place at the table with George's representation of the Federation. George, it's been quite a journey. And on behalf of your many friends at the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, I want to thank you for your service, and we congratulate you on being inducted into the Conservation Hall of Fame, a very well-deserved honor, and as Bob Uecker would say, well done. Program on the 14th and got snowed out. But she put this program together, and I'm happy to say she's a UWSP graduate, a graduate from our CLC program, leadership in that program. And for the last 2 years, she's been doing a lot of work for the Federation, electronic type IT work from Hawaii. And here's Molly.
Thank you so much for attending the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I apologize that I cannot be there, but I'm very glad that you are all there to not only support George, but to support the other amazing inductees. My name is Molly O'Grady, and I'm honored to speak on behalf of George's involvement with youth and conservation, not only at the state level, but also at the national level. As you've already heard, George throughout his career has been involved in conservation at the state level, the national level, the international level. But I think I can speak on behalf of youth and conservation when I say that one of his greatest achievements was creating the Conservation Leadership Corps Development Program in the state of Wisconsin. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the development of that program and why George was such a key player in making it so successful. So back in 2012, the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation basically looked around the room and realized that there was a serious need and lack of youth involvement in conservation. And so they started to ask themselves, well, what can we do? How can we get these young people involved? And that's when George Meyer, along with Lil Pipping, stood up and said, let's create a conservation youth program that provides expert training for students so that they can advocate for policy. And so that's when the CLC was developed, back in 2012, 2013. And the CLC, like I said before, is designed to provide expert training for seniors in high school, as well as sophomores, juniors, and seniors in college, and teach them leadership skills and techniques to allow those students the ability to analyze, develop, and communicate policy. And so that's how I originally met George and met Lil. It was back in 2013 when I was selected as a student to be involved in the first year of the program. So this program is 4 sessions throughout the year that these students attend, and we get different leadership training at each one of those sessions from many amazing natural resource professionals. But I'll never forget at the second session when we were taken to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame as sort of our field trip. And we were walking through this Hall of Fame and I'm seeing all of these amazing conservationists that are up on the wall. And I was alongside one of my team members, whose name is Cody, and we looked up on the wall and we both looked at each other and we were like, why isn't George up here? George should be up here. And so that's where it all began. Since 2013, we've been scheming to try and get George inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it's finally come to fruition, so it's really exciting. And just to give more of a background on the CLC, since 2013, we've graduated over 60 students through our program. They've created around 30 policy resolutions that have been not only presented to the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, but actually turned into actions that the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation is currently working on. And many of those students have come back and they've been retained in the program. And throughout the entire program, George has been there. He's never missed a session. He's never missed a field trip. He has always taken that extra step to get us to meet these amazing natural resource professionals. And I know that I wouldn't be where I am at today without George and his support through this program. To top that off, not only with the CLC, but this past year, I worked alongside George to create a national youth program. Now that we have our CLC developed, we said, well, why not take this to a national level? And so that's what we've been doing. We've been working alongside 3 other states to create what's called the Confluence of Young Conservation Leaders, which is a national youth conference that brings together all of these different youth conservation programs so that they can actually discuss what they're working on in their states, how they've created their programs, and how states that currently do not have programs can actually develop ones for their states so that they can get young people involved too. So this has not only gone from just being at the state level and working with young people there, but this has become a national thing. And now the National Wildlife Federation is even getting more involved in wanting to have more of a hand in what's going on with this. So I think it started off as a small idea and it's blossomed into something beautiful. And we are so very appreciative of George's help with that. I've also worked alongside George as an intern for these, past 5 years or so, and I always remember sitting with him at different conferences and seeing these different conservationists receive these awards, but a lot of them had already passed away. And we always talked about how kind of sad it was that those individuals did not have the opportunity to appreciate that so many people appreciated them. And so that was another thing that really stuck with me with trying to get George nominated into the Hall of Fame, is that we really want him to know how influential he was for all of us in conservation. So with that being said, every great conservationist has their legacy. In the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame, you see people like Ellen Leopold and his legacy with wildlife management, or Gaylord Nelson and Earth Day, and all of these different things. And so for George, I think his legacy is the Conservation Leadership Corps. That's something that's going to go on for years to come and influence people long after George is gone. So we are so proud to call you our mentor. Congratulations, George. Enjoy your evening, and thank you all so much. I cannot wait to see your face up on that wall. And have a great evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Congratulations, George.
Appropriate to bring George up front as we move through the last few slides, the legislative citation, presentation of the induction plaque, and also he wants to speak for a few minutes, but I think we'll let you do that as an acceptance speech. Is that okay? That's good. So just keep standing up. I think it's hard for people to see if we stay down there.
Before I read a couple words, I want to hopefully say a few words about George too. So I have been at the Conservation Leadership Board to speak with the young people who are, I think, George's protege 3 times now. And this year, just a few weeks ago, I was chatting with them about how they can make a difference, not only within the legislature and within brought up George as somebody who lives his values and has made a tremendous impact. And I said, you know, in fact, he's getting recognized at the Conservation Hall of Fame, not knowing that they were the ones who nominated him. And they all said at the same time, we nominated him. And that tells you how much these young people believe in him and his efforts to advance their, not only careers, but their conservation ethics too. And that's a true leader, someone who doesn't just lead by himself, but brings an entire new generation of people into the mix to have them be the next George Meyer. So I think that's really an amazing testament to his leadership for decades. So I'll just read part of the legislative citation from the state legislature. Whereas every year, the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inducts a select group of individuals into the Hall of Fame to recognize the important contributions each has made to natural resource management in the state. And whereas George Meyer has been chosen as a 2018 Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inductee for his integrity, leadership, and his instrumental role in creating and advancing major conservation and environmental policies in Wisconsin. And whereas throughout his long career, he has worked on many crucial, challenging, and often controversial policy issues affecting Wisconsin's rich and diverse natural resources, promoting citizen participation as a voice in public policy, and advancing conservation organizations in our state. Now, therefore, the members of the Wisconsin legislature, on the motion of the legislature, do hereby commend George Meyer for his lifelong dedication to conservation in Wisconsin and honor him for his induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
I think we'll present him the replica of his plaque right at this point, and then turn it over to him for an acceptance speech. So George, congratulations, and as a memento of today's ceremony, you take this and find a place on your wall for it.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to congratulate the other individuals that are being inducted into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame today. Roy and Charlotte Lukes have been outstanding naturalists, land managers, educators, and advocates for conservation. Bill Shorter, as you will hear, was an impressive conservation writer, an historian, wildlife conservationist, and philanthropist. It is an honor, a true honor, to be inducted into the Conservation Hall of Fame with them. I'd also like to thank Ron Seven, Jerry Knuth, and Molly O'Grady for introducing me today. They have all played a major role in my career. It was wonderful to have them share their thoughts and words today. Personally, I'm truly overwhelmed and humbled by being selected to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. It's truly hard to believe that this day has happened. I don't know how many other states have conservation halls of fame, but I am doubtful that their roster of inductees can match Wisconsin's roster of John Muir, Aldo Leopold, Gaylord Nelson, Ernie Swift, and Sigurd Olsen, among many others. Several of my mentors and close friends have been inducted, such as Buzz Mazzani, you've heard about earlier today, Herb Bacon, Christine Thomas, Nina Leopold Bradley, and Gaylord Nelson, to name a few. It is truly amazing to join them today. Being selected to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame is not an individual endeavor. It truly is an accomplishment of thousands of people. In my case, it started with my parents, Buddy and Rose Meyer. I wish they could be here today. As my sister Pat is here today, I will tell you, they instilled in each of their 4 children the importance of hard work, the value of education, and the love of the land, our farm homestead in New Holstein. They also instilled in us the importance of public service. It is no accident that our family is heavily populated with teachers and nurses through several generations. Today, May 5th, will always be a very important day in my life. But the day being the day I'm inducted to the Hall of Fame is not the most important thing that happened on May 5th. As you heard earlier, 45 years ago, I was fortunate to marry my wife, Jane. She's a noted conservationist in her own right and has been my irreplaceable partner throughout my career, taking on the added family duties due to my frequent absence, being my trusted mentor, advisor, and truth teller when I needed it. She was there during the many positive portions of my career, and a stalwart supporter at times of great difficulty. She has earned this recognition today as much as I. I'd also like to thank my daughter Jocelyn and son Andrew. They have the same conservation values and often head to the sun at dad time due to my responsibilities. I always reminded myself that I was doing what I was doing because of them and their generation. I'd like to thank my sister Pat and her husband Paul for being here. My sister Rosie could not make it. My sister Betty, who has passed on, is in my thoughts today. Due to my time, I will not introduce each individual member of my family. And my son-in-law Tony is here. The Beagles, the Gilligan-Knox, the Jazinskis, and Tobys, and my sister-in-law Laura White. They have all been very supportive over the years. Here today are many of my former colleagues from the Department of Natural Resources and several partners that we work with from outside of the agency. In my career at DNR, I had the privilege of working with thousands of the most dedicated and professional colleagues that anyone would want. Their work resulted in the department being viewed as one of the best conservation and environmental agencies in the country. All of those individuals, including our partners, played a major role in this award. I was blessed with two outstanding deputy secretaries, Ron Sumner, who spoke earlier, and Daryl Gazelle. Daryl served as DNR secretary also, and is now the senior vice president and chief financial officer at the University of Texas in Austin. He, like Molly, made the effort to fly a long distance from Austin here for the early induction day, but could not make the trip again today. Also here today are several current and former board members of the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. I joined the Federation, as you heard, as its first executive director in 2003. I had many other work opportunities after I left the DNR, but the decision to join the Federation was easy. The Federation was and remains an outstanding organization. It really gets conservation. It looks at the big picture across the full scope of natural resources management with a strong commitment for stewardship of those resources. It is led by a board of directors comprised of extremely dedicated and hardworking individuals. They are truly committed and wonderful people. The Federation is strongly committed to conservation education, as you heard, mainly focused on youth education. One of their programs is the Wisconsin Conservation Leadership Board, which was designed to help train the next generation of conservation leaders. As of this year, 66 young men and women have graduated from the program. Several are here today. It had been 3 weeks ago, there have been more, but obviously many things are happening in the month of May. While working with WWF board members Phil Pimmick and President George Orchard, the creation of this program out of whole cloth is undoubtedly one of the top 3 highlights of my career. Today we are facing very challenging times in terms of conservation in the state and nation. But the future is bright because of these young men and women which will shift the pendulum back in the right direction. The direction and path that were blazed by Leopold, Muir, Gaylord Nelson, Sigurd Olson, and Ernest Swift. I'd like to especially recognize Molly O'Grady, Monica Banizak, and Janelle Charest for being the leaders of the Conservation Leadership Court and spirits behind my back and led the effort to nominate me for this award. Once again, thank you to the Hall of Fame for this recognition. It's truly humbling. Thank you very much.